Yes,
see your
yes.
face.
Yeah, now we have got one of the finest person, that is Anita Batwani, and she is practicing since 1993. Initially at trial courts and Thane district courts, thereafter Mumbai High Courts. And even we are from Chennai, we have given her few cases and she is handling there. And one of the caretaking person and client based person, and our client will not suffer when we give her cases to her. And she is one of the best person in Mumbai. I found her and I got introduced her through Vaishali from Pune. Now over to Anita.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody
Anita,
hear me? Yes.
you can start now.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's audible.
Now to begin.
The host can unmute host can mute the other people.
Mute,
Rita.
mute all, ma.
Mute all.
Yeah.
Only have us, no? Then only voice will be clear.
Except Manikandan and Ram.
Good evening. Can
Good
everybody
evening.
now hear me? Can everybody hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. We can hear you.
Okay. Now to start with, a very good evening to all of you. I have chosen a very, very simple topic. So it is a very hot and spicy cake today. Though it's a very hot and spicy issue today, the act is Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. I hope all of you are aware as to why this act came into being. The reason or the cause for coming into legislation of this act is the incident of Banwari Devi, which had occurred in Rajasthan, where a government worker, because of her work, was gang raped. The issue was rape by NGOs by filing PIL to the Supreme Court, whereby they contended that a woman had a right to equality and a life of dignity even at workplace as provided under section 14, 15, 19, 1G and 21 of the Constitution of India. Now, as per the PIL, there can be a judgment which is popularly known as Vishakha judgment, which lays down guidelines for prevention, prohibition and redressal of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Now, it was only in the year 2013 that the legislature has enacted this act, which has come into effect from 9th of December 2013. Now, what are the highlights of Vishakha judgment? How different is Vishakha judgment? The Vishakha judgment very clearly defines what is sexual harassment, one. Secondly, it lays down a mechanism for an innovative redressal. The third aspect is that it shifts accountability from an individual to the organization, as well as it concentrates on prevention of sexual harassment. Now, the act is popularly known as POSH. P-O-S-H. The act is popularly known as POSH, and this was legislated as per the Vishakha guidelines, as well as ratification of Convention on Elimination of all form of discrimination against women. Taking into mind these two aspects, the Post Act was enacted. Now, what are the highlights of the present Act? The basic highlights of the Post Act are, first, that it provides for absolutely trained and skilled, competent complaint committees. It provides a time-bound process. It provides for information confidentiality. It has got an assurances of non-retaliation. Provides for counseling as well as an enabling support system. And also, it provides for assistance if the victim wants to file a criminal case. Now, the Act provides initially, of course, as lawyers, we would like to know which are provided under Section 2 of the Act. The basic and most important definition is the definition of aggrieved woman. Now, what is an aggrieved woman? The aggrieved woman can be of any age. She could be working or visiting or not working, as well as and who is subjected to sexual harassment. Now, the aggrieved woman would include a student, a person visiting a workplace, or a working woman. A working woman is an employee. Now, what is an employee as per the Post Act? The employee, as per the Post Act, is a domestic worker, should be a person who is working on either regular, temporary, ad hoc, or daily basis for remuneration or on voluntary basis, and who is employed directly or through an agent, and with or without the knowledge of the principal, and the terms may be expressed or implied. In other words, the definition of employee also includes contract worker, probationer, trainee, apprentice. You may call it by any name. Now, what is work? Now, workplace is any place visited by the employee arising out of or during the course of employment, as well as during the transportation provided by the employer for undertaking such a journey. It includes organized as well as unorganized sector, as dwelling houses, as well as individual enterprises. So, therefore, you can say it includes companies, it includes hospitals, nursing homes, or even a place where there are daily wage workers involved in some production activities and so on and so forth. In other words, any woman at a workplace is to be given protection as per the present Act which is under discussion. Now, the most important definition which we want to look at is what is sexual harassment as per the Post Act. Now, sexual harassment includes any one or more of the following unwelcome acts or behavior. Now, what are the following deeds and acts? Now, these deeds and acts could be either direct or could be implied. The first being physical contact and advances. Second, demand or request for sexual favors. Third, sexually colored remarks. Fourth, showing pornography. Fifth, any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature, which means and includes. To give a few examples, it would include sexually suggestive comments, remarks, jokes, letters, emails, gestures, stares, physical contact, stalking, display of directory in nature. That means it should be directed towards the victim at the purpose or effect. Now, what has to be the purpose or effect? The purpose of the effect has to be interference with the individual's program or of creating an intimidating, hostile, or oppressive environment. Now, in other words, if I have to classify the sexual offenses, it could be of two types. One could be quid pro quo and the other is hostile environment. Now, quid pro quo means what? This for that. Indicating whereby, as has been very clearly laid down in Section 3 of the Act, if there is an implied or preferential treatment in employment, or there is an implied or detrimental threat to employment, or there is a threat to change the status, either present or future, or or interfere with the work or create an intimidating, hostile environment for the female worker there. Now, a few examples of sexual harassment would be, now suppose there is a lady X who joins a call center. She stays late in the evening. When other colleague offers to drop her home, gets dinner for her. On the way home, he proposes to her to spend a night with her. She refuses. The next day repeats the same thing. When again she refuses, he threatens that he will inform everybody at work as well as destroy her career. The most prominent form of sexual harassment. The second could be a little subtle, where supposing a domestic worker in the house, a very common thing which obviously we all experience. Now, if a domestic worker is working in the house, in the case of a definition of a domestic worker, it is not only the employee, but also the person who benefits from the work. So supposing if the lady of the house leaves the house and the man of the house moves about just wearing a towel around his waist and he brushes against the maid, and when the maid threatens that she will complain to the lady when she comes back, he threatens that he will file a complaint of stealing against her. Now, this is another example of sexual harassment. Of course, we all know and we all have heard of so many things of sexual harassment, but the only problem here is that nobody would, for all these years, wanted to complain against. Apart from that, what is an unwelcome behavior? What do you mean by an unwelcome behavior? Now, unwelcome behavior will be with respect to a lady where out of the behavior of her colleague or her employee or any other person, she feels bad, she feels embarrassed, she feels negative self-esteem, powerless, unwanted, and there is a sense of anger or hatred towards the person who is subjecting her to such a behavior will be an unwelcome behavior. Now, what is the in case of a sexual harassment, what is to be seen is not the intent of the perpetrator. What has to be seen is the impact which it causes on the lady or the victim. So the consideration is impact and not the intent of the perpetrator. Now, what do you mean by impact? How will you notice the impact? The impact will be when there is, a decreased work performance by the lady. There is a lot of absenteeism. There is there is a lot of lack of concentration on work. She's publicly sexualized, ostracized. Her job is suffering, and she's going through depression, anxiety, pain, stress. These are the circumstances which will indicate that this lady is subjected to certain type of sexual harassment at workplace. Now, it has been laid down in Dr. Punitha K. Sodhi's case that sexual harassment under POSH has to be looked at not from the point of has to be looked at from the point of or the perspective of a woman. How she feels and what is the impact that has caused upon her is the consideration under the POSH Act. Now, there are certain behavioral patterns which is present will also point out that there is a demand of sexual favor. Now, those could be when the lady is subjected continuously to criticizing, insulting, blaming, being condemned in public, exclusion from group activities, assignments without valid reasons. Then there are statements made in the office which damage the reputation or career of the lady, or certain responsibilities which are given to her are taken away from her. She is given very little work, or she is given a lot of work, or there is constant blame. Even if the work is completed, there is no appreciation. In fact, there is a continuous criticism on the work which is already done by her, plus engaging in smear campaigns and also arbitrary disciplinary actions or withholding resources. Now, supposing if there is a lady who refuses to advances of an employee and she wants an extra printer or she wants another assistant to help her out, these are refused to her. Or she is giving a work which is beyond her capacity or beyond the duties which are actually assigned to her. All these behaviors indicate and require inquiry whether there is a sexual harassment. Then going to the next definition would be, of course, which is very clear and understood, is what is an employer. Now, employer as per the, if it is a government undertaking, then it will be the head of the particular department or the officer specified to be the head or in control of the particular unit or the administrative or the particular department. Then when it comes to a private organization, it will be a person who is responsible for management, supervision and control of the said unit. In a dwelling house, person who employs as well as persons who benefit from the work of the employee. Now coming to this, going further ahead, this was the definitions as provided by Post Act. Now coming to the mechanism, the redressal mechanism provided under the Post Act. The first and foremost step is appointment of committees. There are two types of committees. One is the ICC, that is Internal Complaint Committee, and the second is LCC, that is Local Complaint Committee. Now, what is the difference between the two? The ICC is to be formulated by the employer where there are more than 10 employees, whereas the LCC is to be formulated by a district officer where there are less than 10 employees. Now, suppose like I discussed the case of a domestic worker. In case of her, she has to go to the nodal officer who is appointed by the district officer. Then the nodal officer will send her complaint to the LCC, that is the Local Complaints Committee. Now, the Internal Complaints Committee as well as the LCC, I'll refer it in short as ICC and LCC. Now, ICC as well as LCC will have 4 members. The first member in ICC will be the presiding officer, being a senior level employee of that company. The second, then there are 2 members who are the employees of that particular company, but who have some legal backing or are inclined towards the cause of women. Then there is 1 member. This member is an external member. He is appointed from an NGO or association committed to the cause of women or familiar with the sexual harassment cases. So therefore, there are 4 employees, 1 being the chairman and 3 being members, 1 being the external member. In the case of LCC, the difference is that the district officer will constitute an LCC, and in that case, the chairman will be a person, an eminent woman in field of social work and committed to women cause. Then there will be a member who will be nominated from women working in block or tahsil or ward or municipality, and there will be 2 members. In this case, earlier we had 2 external members, 1 external member. Here we have 2 members, which are either from an NGO or persons associated with an association working for women cause. Now, out of these 2 members, again, at least 1 member has to be a woman, and the other member has to be a person having knowledge or background of law. So and in both the committees, that is ICC as well as the LCC, 50% of the members have to be women. Now, these committees remain into effect for a period of 3 years. After 3 years, there is a change. Now, supposing if a company has got 10 units, 20 units, now each of the units has to have a ICC. So, if your company has got 20 units, there have to be 20 ICC. The only liberty here is that the presiding officer could be 1, but the 3 members have to be different. So, therefore, from every unit there have to be three members, so that the victim can file a complaint easily in her unit if at all any sexual harassment occurs in that particular unit. Now, the external member is appointed basically with a purpose to see to it that there is no pressure or any other influence exercised by the employee on the other committee members, who of course belong to the same working unit. Now, going further, who Yes. Now coming to the aspect of filing of a complaint. Now, who can file a complaint? Of course, the answer is the aggrieved woman has to file a complaint. It has to be with her consent. Now, supposing the first and foremost thing is the aggrieved woman has to file a complaint. But supposing if she is in any manner incapacitated, she is uneducated, or if she has got any other incapacity, in that case, a relative, a friend, or a person having knowledge of the incident can file the complaint, but that has to be only with the consent of the lady. The complaint has to bear the signature or the communication of the victim or the aggrieved woman. In case if there is a death, if the employee or the aggrieved woman has expired, in that case, the legal heir can file a complaint along with the person who has got the knowledge of the incident. Then comes if the aggrieved woman is mentally incapacitated. If she is mentally incapacitated, in that case, the relative, friend, special educator, guardian, authority under which treatment, along with person of knowledge of incident can file the complaint. Now, the complaint has to be filed within a period of 3 months of occurrence of the incident, or if there are series of incidents, then 3 months from the last incident that has occurred. Now, this can be extended for a further period of 3 months, of course, with the permission of the committee. Now, where has this complaint to be filed? The complaint, of course, has to be filed with the committee. There is one more mode of filing a complaint, which is developed by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, which is called a SHEBOT, S-H-E, SHEBOT. That is Sexual Harassment Electronic Bot. This is an online system of filing a complaint where you get a regular complaint registration form which has to be filled and submitted. Now, despite the form being submitted online, it is not the government that takes an action. That complaint is forwarded again to the ICC or the LCC or the district officer or the nodal officer for taking action as per the POSH Act. Important is what are the contents of the complaint. Now, the complainant has to be very, very clear and explicit in a way that it has to specifically provide the description of the incident, the timing, the date, the name and addresses of the respondent, as well as the parties' working relationship. These are the important ingredients of a complaint. Now, what are the rights of the complainant? The rights of the complainant are he gets an empathetic attitude from the ICC or the LCC. Copy of statement with evidence and list of witnesses that may be given by the respondents are to be given to her. Her identity is kept confidential and she is supported in case she wants to file an FIR. And if there is an intimidation, then the statement is recorded in absence of the respondent, as well as she has got a right to appeal. Now, who is the respondent? Very easily answered. The respondent is a person who has committed SH as per the POSH Act. Now, even the respondent is given a patient hearing. The documents, the complaint, the list of witnesses apply to the respondent. Even his identity is kept confidential, and even he is given the right to appeal. Going further ahead, what is the process of inquiry adopted by the committee? Now, this is provided under Section 11 of the Act, which says, Section 11 has read with Rule 7. It provides for the manner of inquiry. The first thing is that where there are service rules, the inquiry by the ICC is as per the service rules. And when there are no such rules, and if the LCC is satisfied that there is a prima facie case, he can assist the victim to file a complaint under 509 of the IPC. The committees, both the committees, LCC as well as ICC, have powers under CPT, that is summoning and enforcing attendances, examining on oath, discovery and production of documents, and all other matters. So in a way, it is controlled by the process under CPT. Now, what is the manner of inquiry, which is provided under Rule 7? It says that subject to Section 11, the complainant has to submit 6 copies of complaint with supporting documents, as well as her name and address, as well as the name and addresses of the witnesses. Then the committee within 7 days sends a copy of the said complaint to the respondent. The respondent has to reply to this within a period of 10 days along with his documents as well as list of witnesses. Principles of natural justice have to be followed during the process of inquiry. Now, there is something also called termination or ex parte inquiry if either party fails to appear before the committee. Now, for that purpose, 3 opportunities have to be given with a time gap of a fortnight each. So that means after 45 days, either the proceedings can be terminated or decided ex parte. The entire inquiry process by the committee has to be completed within a period of 90 days. Now, there is a judgment of Sheetal Prasad Sharma versus State of Rajasthan, which says that the principle of natural justice have to be followed. There is also one more judgment, which is of course in the case of Avinash Nagre versus Navodaya Vidyalaya, where there were students involved, where the court has held that in case of students, it is not necessary to strictly abide by the principles of natural justice in a way that in those circumstances, the student may not be subjected to cross-examination. Now, one of the best part of this act is that even it provides for interim relief. But the interim relief as provided under section 12 of the act are at the request of the victim. If the victim requests for an interim relief, then they are given. Now, what are the interim reliefs that are to be granted? These are transfer of aggrieved woman or respondent to any other workplace, grant paid leave to the aggrieved woman for a period of 3 months, as well as under Rule 8, it provides that the respondent will be restrained from reporting on the work performance of the aggrieved woman or writing her confidential report and or assigning the same to any other office. The second is that if it is an educational institution, then the respondent will be restrained from supervising the academic activity of the aggrieved woman. Now, before an inquiry is conducted under the Act, the committee can also think of conciliation. Now, supposing in a case where the offense is of not a very aggravated nature, say supposing somebody has by mistake sent a non-vegetarian joke and he is ready to apologize. In that case, once the complaint is received by the committee can talk to the complainant and thereafter the respondent, and then the matter can be concise and no inquiry held. In such a case, the inquiry will be closed. The statement of the perpetrator or the person who has committed the offense, who has committed the said act, is recorded and the matter is closed and it is reported to the employer. One of the basic requirement is that the report which is prepared by the inquiry committee under section by both the committees, that is ICC and LCC, which is report has to be prepared under section 13 read with Rule 9 of the Act. The report has to be submitted within 10 days. The inquiry is 90 days. The report is within 10 days. Now, the report is to be submitted to whom? The report is to be submitted either to the employer or the district officer who are taking action as per the recommendation of the committee. Now, what are the actions to be taken? The actions to be taken if the person is found guilty. In that case, if there are service rules, then action as per the service rules, plus compensation which is to be deducted from the salary of the employee. Now, if there are no service rules, then Rule 9 provides that punishments such as written apology, warning, reprimand or censure, withholding of promotion, pay rise, increments, termination, counseling, plus compensation has to be awarded. Now, this is to be awarded by the LCC. The LCC as well as the ICC give report in covering two aspects. One is the finding and the second is the recommendation. The recommendations are to be implemented by the employee within a period of 60 days. Whatever that means, whatever action has to be taken as per the suggestions of the committee, they have to be taken within 60 days. Now, what are the factors for determining the compensation to be awarded? Now, these factors are laid down very clearly in section 15 of the Act, which says the factors to be considered while awarding the compensation are mental trauma, pain or suffering, emotional stress suffered by the victim, loss in career opportunity, medical expenses, physical or psychiatric, and income and financial statement of the respondent, as well as feasibility of payment. Now, when the payment has to be made, whether it has to be made in lump sum or installment, even that aspect has to be considered. Now, these are the redressal mechanisms which are provided by the Act. After the report of the committee, there is a right to appeal as provided under Section 18 of the Act. The appeal could be either to the court or the tribunal. Whereas when it is the service rule, the person who is in the upper strata or appointed as per the service rule as the appellate authority will entertain the said appeal. Now, this is the redressal mechanism. Now, how do you prevent sexual harassment? For that, there are certain duties which are casted on the employer. The duties that are casted are provided under Section 19 of the Act, which says that the employer has to provide a safe working environment. He has to display in conspicuous place penal consequences of the sexual harassment case, organize workshops and awareness program for employees, as well as orientation for the committees, provide for facilities to the committees to conduct the inquiry, assist in securing attendance of complainant, respondent, as well as the witnesses. Whatever information is required, he should supply all the information, provide assistance to the complainant for police complaint, and he should also cause to initiate action against the perpetrator, and even if he is an outsider, by helping the victim lodge a police complaint and take other steps. Then treat sexual harassment as misconduct. Now, service rules are existing since quite a few years. This legislation provides that sexual harassment has to be treated as misconduct under the Act, and the provision has to be made in the service rule as regards the sexual harassment as well. Plus, the employer has to monitor the timely submission of report of PC of the complaint committee. Now, if at all the employer fails to comply to any of the duties as provided under the Act, then there is a penalizing section, which is section number 26. If the employer fails to do any of the acts as provided under Act, there is a penalty of ₹50,000 first on the first contravention. On the second contravention, it is double. And on the third contravention, there is cancellation of the license. Now, this has been very clearly mentioned in the judgments of Renuka Mukherjee versus Vodafone SR, where there was no ICC. That was, the internal committee was not provided for. The court have imposed a penalty of ₹50,000. In other case of Dr. Punita Sodhi, similarly, a penalty of 25,000 was imposed, as well as Global Health Private Limited. There was a penalty of 50,000 for non-compliance, and 25 lakhs were given as compensation to the aggrieved woman. Now, we must all be having a question in our mind that sexual harassment, there are penalizing provisions provided under the IPC. Just because an aggrieved woman files a complaint under the Post Act does not disentitle her from filing a complaint under IPC. Provisions of 354A to D as well as section 509 of IPC are always open to the woman. In fact, Post Act in itself states in its section 28 that this act is not in derogation of either the Human Rights Act or any other act that is under which remedy is available to the aggrieved woman. Now, in the case of Dr. S. Murugan versus State of Tamil Nadu, which has been recently decided on 14th of February 2019, it has been very clearly laid down that both the remedies can be resorted to by the aggrieved woman. There is no impediment or bar of any kind of adopting both the procedures. Now, I think all of us are aware that in the case of Banwari Devi, what has happened? Banwari Devi was a government employee. working at a rural level. In one of her case, where she was trying to prevent a child marriage. At that point of time, though the child marriage could not be prevented, which was performed at a later date, the people who were doing the said act committed gang rape on the lady. Now, this was therefore stirring the mind of people as to if a woman is not safe as regards the work that she is doing, then it will be difficult for her to work, and therefore, based on the various provisions of Constitution of India, this act came into being. Now, there is something more which we all know. There is something called Me Too movement. Now, what is this Me Too movement? Is it related to post? Well, Me Too movement is actually an awareness being created by all the celebrities possible as to making the women aware that they're not only maybe a domestic worker, she may be a little worried to file a complaint under sexual harassment case. But when she hears that there are celebrities who have been subjected to sexual harassment and are coming out in the open and speaking, so then even she will get the courage to come and open in public and probably file a complaint against the perpetrator of the crime. And the Me Too movement is in fact an awareness program initiated individually by people, and it has got nothing to do either with this act or either with the government. Now that's it about the POSH Act. Yes, there is one aspect which is left, which is supposing if the committee arrives at a finding that the complaint that has been filed by the aggrieved woman is either malicious or false. In that case, what happens? In that case, as provided under Section 14, read with Rule 10 of the POSH Act, the action has to be taken even against the aggrieved woman. In fact, in one of the it is to be taken as per the service rules or in accordance with Rule 9 of the POSH Act. In one of the recent judgment of Anita Suresh versus Union of India, a penalty of ₹50,000 was levied for filing a false and frivolous case. That's it. If anybody has to ask any question. That covers the act. If anybody has to ask any questions, they can ask me.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we will, so those who have any questions or doubts, please raise your hands. There is a raise your hand option in the chat box. If you are on the computer, there is a more option at the bottom. Go there and you will find the raise the hands. Or if your participant window is open, it will be on the right side of your screen. Or on your phone, when you tap, it will be one of the more options. And now Ravi sir is already raised. So, sir, please. You're unmuted, sir.
Any recent case? Hello?
Yes.
Any recent case which has happened, you have got any judgments on that?
The judgments which have all cited are of 2019 and 2018.
Not thereafter?
No, not thereafter.
Okay. Yuva Prakash want to ask something.
Hello.
Yes.
Madam, it was a very wonderful session.
Thank you.
Yeah, you were lucidly explained the entire features of the act. My question, my query is, you said that if the incident has happened in a series, the sexual harassment incident, if it has happened in a number of occasions. The last occasion, the cause of action survives. That's what you stated.
Correct.
My question is, suppose if she has consented all along and suddenly turns and says that it is sexual harassment, how to differentiate it?
See, that is against a matter of evidence. You will have to be able, the perpetrator will have to establish consent. That consent is established, and if supposing now there are 10 incidents, now for 9 incidents he consented, but
Yes.
the 10th incident he did not consent. So the perpetrator will be liable for the 10th incident.
How to differentiate?
Differentiate. Now supposing, I will give a very small illustration. There was this police inspector who was employed at a police station. One fine day, he just gets up and enters into a house of a lady and forces himself upon her. The lady files a complaint against him, saying that he has indulged into sexual harassment. To which the reply of the inspector was that she is a woman of not a
Good character.
good character, and that he has indulged into all this with her so many times. To which the court has held that the earlier incident where there is a consent is not the question. The question is the last time when you have forced upon her that amounts to sexual harassment.
Any reported judgment but in that aspect?
That is a judgment. If you want, I'll just send it to you. I don't have.
Yeah,
it
if
right
you can
now,
please
but I will.
circulate, ma.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Nakiran sir is having query now, so I'll just unmute him. Yes, sir.
Madam, very good evening.
Good evening.
The session is very effective. You are very strict. At the same time, we are able to follow you.
Thank you so much.
And I have a doubt regarding, you said about a case with reference to Navodaya Vidyalaya.
Yeah, Navodaya Vidyalaya, yes.
Can you able to give me the citation?
I will send you the citation. Right now I don't have, but I will send it to you. All the
Okay.
citations I will send it up.
Okay, ma'am. And one more doubt. You said under section 19 and simultaneously they can complain in IPC also.
Yes, they can.
They can complain in IPC.
Yes, both the acts. For that there is a section 28 in the act. Very clearly specified.
Section 28 in the Act.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Section
And
28 and judgment of Dr. S. Murugan.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
That is by your own state of Tamil Nadu. S.
Okay.
Murugan is by state of Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
What's the state of Tamil Nadu?
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Now, Rajini's iPhone name is not reflecting. I'll just unmute them. Please, you can go ahead with your query.
I am Rajini.
Yes, Rajni.
Madam, yeah. Madam, you were mentioning about the workshops to be organized in the where it has to be organized in order to avoid this fall. So, how frequently programs have to be organized in the factories or corporates, or whether PSUs would need more of such workshops?
That provides for a frequent orientation of your committee, as well as providing for the sensitization of the employees of the issue among the employees, so that they should be able to speak about sexual harassment either in the employer-employees meeting. So now this is that there are certain policies and rules that have to be framed by the PSU in accordance with the Sexual Harassment Act as to when can you hold the meetings and when can you organize all this workshop. This is something like organization of a workshop. Of course, it could be within 3 months, 6 months, but as per the policies which you have formulated. For that, you have to formulate a policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Ma'am, you're done with your query, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm done. I am done.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Mr. Suresh Kumar Kopa has some query.
Hello, madam. Good
Yes,
evening,
sir.
madam. Good evening, madam. Your session was good and a lively session.
Thank you, sir.
One simple question is that if a boss and the subordinate both are in a room and there was some exchange of sexual this one, how can she prove that there is some this one?
Yes, that's a point probably which I left out. See, in the case of a boss complaint,
Okay.
It is not as per the provisions of CRPC and IPC, where you have to prove things beyond reasonable doubt. Here, the things have to be proved on preponderance of, like how we prove in the civil cases. See, when suppose an offense occurs in a closed cabin. Supposing if an offense occurs in a closed cabin, it is only the woman who knows about it and it is the man who knows about it. Now the various circumstances, the behavioral patterns which I stated out, if those behavioral patterns are there, plus supposing if that lady is not being, if she's either being subjected to some irregular behavior or conduct in public, as well as supposing if her work is being affected, in that case, it needs to be inquired into, and all these factors will have to be considered. Whether if her work is affected, her personal life is affected, or if there are sudden, there is a sudden transfer or suddenly taking away her work. These circumstances will have to be established.
Okay, same thing can be happen to the manager also, no?
Yes,
because
everybody.
So they can also file a complaint against her regarding this posh.
Yes, of course. But here in case of posh, it is only aggrieved woman. It is for protecting women. If the man has to file, it is under the code of conduct that it has to be.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Welcome.